all men have a vision to create or be a part of something bigger than themselves. Man has achieved many impressive accomplishments over the years. The Egyptians volunteered, risked death and injury to build the pyramids. The Romans created an empire unlike no other. And a couple of losers on Twitter decided to host a shitty music festival for people who can't get laid, and it went good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it. Virginfest, not to be confused with the actually professionally done music festival of the same name, was going to be an incel-core music festival hosted at Toki Tattoo in Atlanta on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. What incel-core exactly means varies from person to person, but for this music festival, if you can even call it that, it referred to a group of small independent artists who create similar types of music and share the same audience. This audience being edgy Zoomers who enjoy 4chan and 4chan adjacent culture, shock value humor, and incels. An incel is someone who is unable to enter a relationship despite wanting to. People who identify with the term are rather infamous for posting some pretty wild shit online, although obviously not all of them are like that. A lot of people who identify with the term are also doing it semi-ironically and in jest. The narrative that all people who call themselves incels are like hateful neo-Nazi crazies is not true. Well, maybe they're a little crazy, but they're definitely not all bad people. The headliner for this event was the most famous, or rather infamous, from the scene of music, called School Shooter, or Negative XP. Negative XP makes lo-fi punk music. What sets him aside from other punk artists, either popular or obscure, is his lyrical content and his associations to 4chan and other edgy circles on the internet. His lyrics have been described as misogynistic and hateful. I would describe them as funny and correct. Other artists who are going to perform at Virginfest at Toki Tattoo: rap artist Egg White, who is most famous for being falsely accused by the mainstream media for committing a terrorist attack. Jezebel Bably, I don't know how to say her name. I have one of her t-shirts, I do not know how to pronounce her name, I'm sorry. A female incel rock artist, and other artists including Hard Christ, Hot Lever, and more. Not to mention Sam Hyde affiliated comedian and provocateur Frank Castle was also present at the event and was apparently planned to perform, judging by this video of him practicing singing with Negative XP.
Bright-dyed hair and obnoxious clothes, thinks communism is the way to go. She's a whore, a whole a time a dozen, Jezebel.
The event was organized by Raven, also known as Cop Killer 1999, a tattoo artist and semi-popular Twitter e-girl, who somehow talked her boss into letting her host the event at her place of work. Before we go any further, none of these people are remotely serious political figures or some sort of extremists. They are all just edgy content creators who make provocative content for people who are edgy online. On the day of the event, multiple big and somewhat big Antifa and far-left Twitter accounts and users, including but not limited to Atlanta Anti-Fascists, Ethan Embry, Panic in the Discord, Ruby Tuesday, Dirty South Right Watch, and more started promoting the lie that Virginfest was a white nationalist event. Now, what is Antifa? Antifa is short for anti-fascist, which just means you oppose fascism. Although when you say Antifa, it's almost always referring to groups of far-left, usually anarchist groups who are okay with using violence to further their cause. You'll see them at a lot of political events in black clothing and masks, engaging in violence or destruction of property. Although most of the time it appears they aren't actually engaging in violence, if you go through popular Antifa Twitter pages, it appears they are actually constantly fighting sticker turf wars with neo-Nazi skinheads and neoconservatives rather than doing violence. It's quite the sad existence. There is no central Antifa organization. It's a bunch of small groups with no real structure that just have similar beliefs and promote each other on Twitter and other social media websites, and they plan to do organizing on those accounts. Now, how did they come to this completely logical conclusion that this is a white nationalist event? Their reasoning was because Negative XP was stated to be headlining. Negative XP is not white. Negative XP is also a first-generation immigrant whose parents barely speak English. Also on Twitter at the same time, he was claiming for days he was not going to be present. He would later actually show up though. So their claim that this was a white nationalist event was because an Asian dude who might not have actually been going was rumored to have been going to perform. They claimed he was a white nationalist because some of his Instagram followers were supposedly groypers. Groypers tend to be followers of controversial conservative commentator Nicholas Fuentes, although the character in name was used in politics long before Fuentes' association with the term and meme became synonymous. Also, Fuentes is not a white last name. I didn't know if you knew that, but hopefully now you do. Then they continue to argue that Negative XP is a white nationalist because he follows popular webcomic artist Stone Toss and provocative IRL streamer Baked Alaska on Instagram. I've already done a series of YouTube videos on Baked, so I won't get too much into him, but Stone Toss is a controversial yet influential right-wing webcomic artist who has as many diehard fans as he has haters. Apparently, whoever wrote this Twitter thread didn't know that follows don't automatically mean endorsement of ideas or posts. I have no idea what this proves other than the fact that Negative XP is okay with seeing Stone Toss's comics on his Instagram feed. Raven, the event organizer, tried to stop the lies by clarifying to Atlanta anti-fascists via Twitter DMs that the event wasn't associated with groypers at all and it was just a fun show and not some sort of far-right event, and asked them to stop. Antifa refused to do this because Raven also followed Stone Toss on Twitter, while conveniently ignoring the fact she follows left-wing accounts, but okay. These people cannot and would not be reasoned with. They tried making a bunch of other arguments leading up to the show on why it was a white nationalist event. I'm not going to respond to everyone, but just so we know the intelligence, or rather amount of good faith these people have, they tried using Negative XP's song Cops Beating Down on Hippie Scum at the 1968 Democratic National Convention as further proof he was right-wing. That song is about mocking police for beating down and using violence on left-wingers. And the song portrays cops as unstable and violent murderers who hate working-class civilians.
So he's got his gun, he's got his badge, he's got a stick to beat and thrash all the low-class tricks of society. A simple man, keeping the peace, beat, 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 kill, 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 stomp and rock till they lose their will. Shoot first and ask questions later. A gun is the greatest negotiator.
They literally thought a song with a left-wing message was right-wing because of the title. They are either incapable of comprehending the very obvious meaning of a song, or they are just being bad faith and hoping their followers don't actually listen to the song and just take their word for it that it's a right-wing song. Virginfest was looking like it wasn't going to happen. According to Negative XP, Antifa decided to allegedly call in bomb threats to scare the owners into not hosting the event. According to Raven, along with the bomb threats, there were threats to shoot up the place. Virginfest would no longer take place at Toki Tattoo after a government organization to prevent gun violence stepped in and got the landlord of the property to cancel it. Well, anyways, it appeared Antifa got what they wanted. The show was probably not going to happen since it was no longer being held at Toki Tattoo. So, a bunch of leftists who are supposed to care about working class people and minorities allegedly decided to threaten to murder and destroy a small business and working class people for hosting a small music festival because that said music festival was allowing an Asian musician to play. Antifa just loves to enable and uphold white supremacy and the patriarchy, I guess. That's sarcasm, by the way. It appears some of these people don't have, like, the ability to comprehend, like, humor, and maybe they have, like, severe autism, I don't know, but that's a joke. Antifa would not at all celebrate this victory, because this was not everything they wanted. They wanted Raven fired, and it was made very clear Antifa getting Toki to back out would actually end up not being the end of the show. It would go on. Virginfest would then be held in the woods, and Negative XP would actually show up despite contradicting himself on Twitter, but in a disguise. Although this new location provided a huge problem for the showrunners and performers. They couldn't use any of their good equipment, such as their amps and speakers and such, as there is no electricity in the woods. they would have to play with what would later be dubbed the potato guitar in like one drum. That was pretty much all they had. Although it did seem Virginfest was going as well as it could have been going at this point. A live stream of the event had hundreds of people watching it, apparently hitting over 1,000 live concurrent viewers at one point, and it seemed people were having fun both from the comfort of their home and at the event in person. From what I watched of the stream, the music was good. It wasn't really a punk show at this point, but rather an acoustic show. But still, it was music and it was good. Although Antifa would try to disrupt this fun.
Look, I've been here the whole time. I came here because of that shit. I came here because of that shit. I thought this was gonna be like a crowd, like that's what they were making it to. Like,
you're the one asshole that looks like a douchebag.
You look like an
Everyone's
asshole.
hanging out normally. No one's doing any fucked up
I'm
shit.
a gay furry.
And you're the asshole.
I'm here. I'm a gay furry. I'm a left-leaning gay furry. And like, I mean, these people are cool. People are fucking cool as shit.
That's what everybody thinks.
Your mom has obesity? Honestly, I'm a pro-Antifa, very leftist.
Yeah.
Then why are you
Anti-Virginfest, because this is a forum for misunderstood teens to just play their music together.
I'm a misunderstood teen.
You're not a teen.
I'm not a teen.
Are you really a teenager? Oh my god.
You're trying to get your edgy point across, it's not working.
Wow. Fuck that dumb. Looks like a bust the tablecloth.
At one point, 2 Antifa members showed up and tried to disrupt the event by playing music on a loudspeaker and trying to start trouble. They would then get food dumped on them, assault some random guy, chased out and mocked online for looking like the avatars the people they hate use. According to Raven, the guy who got shoved is supposedly looking into pressing charges. Also, they would allegedly take pictures of everybody's license plate who was at the event. How they knew what parked cars belonged to the people attending the event, or were people just chilling in the woods, I have no idea. The show would keep on going. The social media war would rage on as the show was going on. Members of Atlanta Anti-Fascists and Dirty South Right Watch were apparently at the show spectating and live tweeting the event. While they were doing this, they kept lying about the event in any way they could, and even allegedly lying about things people were doing at the event. They pointed out that Andy Nowicki, and I think that's how you say it, was present at the event as a way to attack the event even more. Andy is someone who helped Richard Spencer create the alt-right movement as we know it today. Although they leave out the fact he wasn't supposed to be there. According to Raven, he tried getting a press pass from the organizers, but they ignored him. He also didn't have a ticket. The only reason he was there was because the event was now located in a public place, thanks to Antifa. He now couldn't be removed. While I was talking to Raven about all this, she seemed pretty upset about him being there and recording and interviewing minors for his YouTube channel, while also not disclosing who he was, as that could hurt someone's reputation. A lot of the people on Twitter thought he was a journalist for Vice, although that's because he was like the oldest person there. Then Virginfest got the cops called on them by supposedly Antifa, ironic if true since they hate the police. Instead of shutting down the show, the cops stayed and enjoyed the show, taking pictures with people attending the event. Then the headliner took the stage. Even after all the hell everybody went through, it would all be worth it to listen to Negative XP. He played 3 to 4 songs, then left with a girl. And that was Virginfest, but of course our story isn't over yet. Before we go on to talk what happened after Virginfest, 2 quick things I don't know where to put in this video. The first is somewhat interesting and related to Virginfest. While on his way to attend Virginfest, IRL streamer Chicken Andy was apparently held at gunpoint, pistol whipped with an AR-15, robbed, curb stomped, and threatened with rape by black people because he received a racist donation on text-to-speech around them when, I guess, doing a stream. He was then shortly after arrested for loitering. A First Amendment auditor and former member of law enforcement named James Madison made a video on the situation and it got a lot of views. In this video, he describes the situation or arrest as unlawful. He says the arrest was made for no reason. He calls the cops tyrants and talks about how this is a slam dunk lawsuit that Chicken Andy can make. Just something interesting I thought I'd throw in. Perhaps I'll make a longer video about this specific situation in the future, maybe. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Also, it's time for me to show. Donate to the Patreon, get exclusive videos, help out the channel. I would like to do this as a career and I could use your help. There are also other donation methods in the description if Patreon isn't for you. After Virginfest, the online social media war regarding its existence would continue to rage on. Antifa members would not let it go. Shortly after the show, Discord messages from Raven would be posted, appearing to admit to having the idea of wanting Baked Alaska to perform, and they would use this to further attack the show's reputation, even after it happened and nothing political took place outside of a few edgelords shouting offensive things for shock value, which I don't even know if you could consider that political activism, but alright. If you've watched my videos going over the story of Baked Alaska's career, you would know Baked Alaska doesn't really appear to have any serious beliefs. He just bounces around from controversial political scene to controversial political scene to stay relevant and do provocative live streams. Why anyone would care if he performed his cringy Trump rap music, I have no idea. Also, according to Raven, these messages were taken out of context and she was just joking. Which makes sense because Baked Alaska is not a good musician compared to everybody else who performed.
We love our cops, our law enforcement. We love the military, they're important.
Individuals who would normally be on Raven's side were criticizing her in the event now on Twitter. Nick Fuentes would tweet out from an apparent burner account at Raper6000 the most terminally online statement I have ever read.
Cacking at the failure of Virginfest. I like Shooter, but a lot of the people in that scene are pretentious F-word hipsters. They think they're better than the right-wing political scene because they're so above it all or too cool to care. Get fucked by Antifa hipster simp bitch. Not as easy as the groypers make it look, is it? You really look above it all when you're apologizing for being alive to pedo Antifa on your Insta story. Now that's what I call punk rock.
I asked a couple of normies to overlook these tweets and they didn't understand what he said at all. When I was talking to Raven, she didn't even understand what he was trying to say. So, in short, he's just laughing at them and flexing about how successful his events were and how they didn't go wrong at all or get derailed by Antifa. And also, he didn't say faggot and instead said F-swear because he's afraid of his new Twitter account being deleted. The pressure kept building on top of Raven. Unknowing to most people following this drama on Twitter, Raven was getting hardcore canceled in her local community. Posts were being made that got hundreds of likes, amplifying the lie that this was some sort of extremist event. These posts spread extremely far in around her community due to Instagram's story feature. Raven and her employer received hundreds of messages of hate, some of them death threats. One of these threats was from someone Raven knew, and that person also knew where she lived. She lost a lot of friends and hundreds of Instagram followers over this shitstorm. And then she did the worst thing she could have done. Issue bad statement and apology after bad statement and apology, which is what Nick Fuentes was referring to earlier. The reason you can't and shouldn't do these things is because, for one, Raven did nothing wrong. She didn't need to apologize. I'm not a lawyer, but apologizing for supposedly having white nationalists or groypers or whatever at your event probably makes it harder to sue for slander, as an apology is the admittance of guilt. And also, it was pretty obvious these people didn't want an apology no matter how genuine it is. They will hang something like this over your head forever. You just gotta ignore them. And this would prove to be true. According to Raven, someone would later try breaking into her house. Although nothing came of this outside of a broken lock. Also, I got to agree with Antifa here. This is pretty obviously not a real apology, and it's just someone melting down, doing anything to make all the pain and suffering go away. This would become even more apparent when in leaked Discord chat logs, she was proud of the event and was just upset with people in her community and on Twitter. Later on during all of this, an old picture of Raven with a Confederate flag would be leaked online. People would use this image to continue to promote the narrative that she is some sort of racist or whatever. This is once again something taken out of context. It comes from her private Instagram where she let people she trusted onto. Someone who decided they didn't like her anymore decided to leak it. The story she told me was that she went to buy weed from someone's house. While inside she saw the flag. She quickly took a picture with it and jokingly posted it with the caption, anyway, with a blushing emoji. I believe her, as she does look somewhat uncomfortable in the picture, and the Instagram post is from months ago with a joking caption. Plus, with all the dishonest attacks we've been over, whose word am I supposed to believe at this point? On September 5th, the worst would happen to Raven. She was fired from her job. Antifa had gotten what they wanted earlier. The Twitter feud would escalate once more. Negative XP would tweet out, "This isn't about quote-unquote right or wrong or politics. This is censorship/slavery. These people want to own and punish you for not submitting. They live only to consume, destroy others and themselves. Think of Christ in times like this. May God have mercy on Atlanta Antifa and Toki Tattoo." Nick Fuentes would go on from mocking the event to sharing sympathy. He wrote,
Damn, that sucks.
Followed up with,
The cool kids just found out about Antifa. Everybody stop the presses. This is no longer about politics. This is serious stuff. Remember, if you care deeply about these issues 1 second before it affected people like this, they would call you a nerd, racist, tryhard, loser, mock you, etc.
A petition to get Raven's job back was created, but it didn't go anywhere. At first, I thought the announcement of her firing was a ruse. I originally thought Toki claimed they fired Raven, but it was a lie and they were just going to have her not work until this whole thing blew over. As to an outsider, this didn't appear to be that big of a situation, although when I thought this, I didn't have as much insight as I thought I did. To me, it was like 50 people who were just really upset about it happening, and a couple of thousand upset at those upset. And I thought none of these people would ever be clients at this place. I thought it would have definitely been forgotten about in a week. But nope, Raven confirmed to me she was fired, and the story and situation was much worse than I initially thought. A GoFundMe was made and raised about 1.5k to help Raven out in her time of need, and it appears this whole situation is over. I think Raven will be okay. I don't think her life is over like she appears to think. She seems interested in starting her own tattoo business or shop or something. Hopefully she can do that at some point. While talking to her privately during and after all this, and by following her public Twitter account, she's had her ups and downs. Hopefully she fully recovers from this rather soon. She actually really loved that job and is upset over losing it. In the days following, there would be small Twitter slap fights over more dishonest tweets and an article written by Dirty South Right Watch. This whole article does show some talent though from Antifa. You need to require some talent if you can write so much about an event in which nothing really interesting happened. What was really interesting and what allowed me to write so much about this whole event was not the event itself at all, but rather the people trying to destroy it. If this event happened and it went well, I highly doubt anybody would remember it in like 2 weeks, but we're still talking about it, so good job, guys. Was Virginfest a failure? It all depends on how you want to look at it. I don't think it was. The way I look at it, it ended up happening and the attendees seemed to have fun despite it not going as planned. I saw a lot of people online wishing they went. I talked to a few people who went. Some of them carpooled across the country to go to it. It was a fun, cool event where internet weirdos and losers could hang out and vibe with people just like them and listen to the same obscure artists. The us versus them mentality with the Antifa people probably made this bond amongst each other stronger. I think it went as good as it possibly could have gone with being kicked out of the planned location the day of. Although it would have definitely been better if it was held the way it was supposed to be held and if Raven didn't get fired over it. In the end, I guess this is the glass half full or half empty situation. I can point out to the positives to argue it wasn't a failure, and someone can easily point all the bad shit that happened, and both of our opinions would both be valid and reasonable.